if you were intimidated when Naomi was doing her keynote and she knows all the things and she has a huge amount of knowledge and a huge amount of energy, don't be intimidated, because there's a place for you even if you are not technical at all. I always say that I am only cyber adjacent, because I've worked here for a long time. I am not technical in any way, but the best thing about what I do is that I get to meet cool people, and I brought 3 of them together for you today. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we're going to talk about, this is what I was saying. I know everyone's saying, how can I do all this stuff? I have the drive, I have the work ethic, I have all the things Naomi said, but I don't have the money to find, to go and buy all these resources. So these guys are going to tell you a bunch of places that you can do and ways to get involved. So we're going to start with Matt Mitchell, and then Simeon, who you've already heard about what a star he is. You're going to have a whole hour with him later. Completely free game that he has developed with his colleagues at Microsoft that gives you a real sense of getting hands-on with real data. And so he's going to walk everybody through that later on, but he's going to talk a little bit about it here too. And then Tennisha Martin, who is the founder of BlackGirlsHack and a previous SANS keynoter, and yeah, and has a huge fan club. So we'll start with Matt. Will you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Matt Mitchell. My pronouns are he, they, and I'm from the Ford Foundation, which is a grant maker. We're a nonprofit that supports nonprofits in the fight against inequality around the world. I'm also the founder of Crypto Harlem, an organization that's designed to get non-technical people into cybersecurity to kind of fight surveillance and technical overreach.
Hi everyone, my name is Simeon Kakpovi. I am a senior threat intelligence analyst at Microsoft's Threat Intelligence Center. And so my day job is actually tracking adversaries. So I find the biggest, baddest hackers in the world is what I do. But off to the side, I'm also passionate about getting people into cybersecurity. And so my coworkers and I have been working on KC7, which is a game actually designed just for you all, right? And it's to answer the old age question of, how do you get into the cybersecurity when you don't have a job or the job that's going to get you those skills? So I'm really excited to come and share that with you all today.
And I am Tennisha Martin. I am the founder and executive director for BlackGirlsHack. I am a pen tester and also a manager. And I am very excited to be here. Our organization helps for people, men, women, girls, boys, any color of the rainbow, who are trying to reskill, upskill into cybersecurity. So myself and a couple of my friends are here from BlackGirlsHack. So if you have questions, or if you're interested in joining, we do hands-on workshops. I'm happy to talk to you.
Awesome. Okay, I will do my best to look at questions coming in on Slack while I'm up here, so I'm not ignoring you while I'm scrolling my phone. Also, they don't really need me because the 3 of these people could talk to you all day long. But so you just mentioned hands-on workshops, Tennisha. So let's start talking about that. So you run BlackGirlsHack, which is open to anybody who's interested in getting into the field. So how do you think professional associations like that are a good gateway into here? And what are some of the things that you do that people can get involved with?
So I tell people, if you're interested in getting into cybersecurity, not to do it by yourself. I tried to get into cybersecurity for decades, years at least, and the problem that I was having was that I was trying to do it by myself, right? Without any, cyber friends, without any allies, mentors, any of those things. And I can tell you that that's the exact wrong way to go about it. I would advise, if you are new to cyber and you are serious about it, that you find not just one group of people, find your people, but find multiple groups of people. There are so many organizations out here that are doing amazing work. BlackGirlsHack does it. My friend Mary Galloway, she runs Women's Cyber Jitsu. They are a good group for women who are in the space. There's a lot of different organizations that are doing this work. And for people who are not able to get experience, hands-on experience, I would suggest that you volunteer for an organization and then use those organizations to get that work experience, because you can put that on your resume. You can, use the skills. Our volunteers do pen tests against, for example, our organizations. We have threat hunters. We have all of the things within our organization that a normal company does, and you can use that experience. And there are so many other organizations that do a lot of the same things. So I think that it's important that if you take nothing else away from this day, that you go and find your tribe, your group of people. I call it a squad. Go and find your squad so that you can, work with other people and use your collective experience to do better.
Do you have a hashtag that you like to use?
Yes, my hashtag is world domination. I am all about living your best life, giving back, leaving a mark on the world. So that's my version of world domination. It doesn't have anything to do with like any governmental overthrow or anything like that.
So it's interesting that you mentioned volunteering, right? Because people always need help putting on events. Often people will come and say, hey, is there a way that I could come to a summit? And because I don't really have a budget and we can find stuff for you guys to do. So Matt, so there was a question for you. Somebody said, can you repeat the organization that you founded, not your Ford Foundation, but your other organization? And does that have volunteer opportunities?
Yeah, it's called Crypto Harlem. It was started 10 years ago. We've been doing this for a decade. Before cryptocurrency was huge, and the crypto stands for cryptology and cryptography, because we teach the Black community, inner city community, about like cryptology, and like one of the first offices of NSA was run by African Americans. William Coffey's leadership, code breakers and things like that. A lot of lost history, and saying like anyone can do this, and you can do this. But more importantly, there's levels of surveillance all around us, and it requires everyone, all people, to come together to push back against surveillance. And you need to have some technical ability to really do it on a high level. We do have volunteer opportunities. We have instructors who kind of lead these accountability squads. So we'll be like, hey, listen, if you want to get into GRC, then maybe you should have privacy accreditation. There's 50 states in the United States, and they're going to each have their own privacy rules about surveillance, about how technology could be used, et cetera. And they're going to need people who are certified in privacy. So IAPP has privacy certification. There's 3 different types. And you might be someone who would be taking a Security Plus or a SAN certificate, but this is an opportunity for you. And our volunteers are people who are leading the accountability squads, who are training people and educating folks and things like that.
So somebody in Slack was asking if any of the volunteer opportunities are virtual for people who are not located near where things might be going on.
Yeah, everything's actually 100% virtual. So, we have a weekly meeting on each of these things that we're training people on. And I call it like from the block to the sock. So you'll go from like the street to the security operations. And we'll fast track you in, and we know exactly what it takes. We know that, and it's not super easy. You go to a conference like this, you had to take time off of work. You had to travel here. You had to find a way to watch the live stream or get a babysitter or whatever. We deal with like the realities of human life. And we also understand that a lot of our folks are applying to 40, 50 jobs a day and not getting interviews. Like, that's a reality. People tell you there's tons of jobs, and there are tons of jobs, but you need to know that a lot of those jobs are high-level jobs. They'll hire someone to be a director, they'll hire someone to build a team, but they're not gonna be looking for that entry-level role just yet. And so there are entry-level jobs available, but many of them are under the water. They're not advertised. So you'll have to be where the jobs are. You have to network. You have to go to great events like the SANS event. You have to be on like InfoSec Twitter. You have to be on InfoSec Mastodon. You have to be out there pounding the digital streets or the literal streets to let people know your brand and who you are, to be able to get an entry-level role. Because many of them are, hey, we have an opening, do you know someone? And they'll turn to someone to their left or right, and that's the job post. Like, you're not gonna see it. It'll be filled before you know it.
Awesome. Simeon, did you have a couple of slides that you wanted to show? People are interested in KC7. Somebody was asking whether they needed to sign up, but no, right?
No, you actually don't have to sign up. You can go to our website at kc7cyber.com. We'll do an hour workshop later where we actually show you what KC7 is all about and how you can get it set up. But we've worked really hard because we know, getting started is really hard. And people will say, okay, I have this thing that's going to help you figure it out. But then you have to like jump through like 10 different hoops, and you have to have the right computer, and you have to have some type of know-how to figure out how to get it, figure it out, how to get it set up. And so we said, how can we like break down, how can we deal with the realities of life? That, everyone's not gonna have, all this knowledge or capability or the money to get it set up. And how can we make it as easy as possible to get it set up for you? So we made it really, 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 really simple. for you to get started and look at real cybersecurity data. And we'll actually show you that in the workshop at 3 o'clock.
It's very impressive. It's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
So, okay, you are much more recently out of college than
Yes.
some of us, like me. But what we are finding so much when Emily and I are talking to people about new to cyber is that so many people are telling us, like, we need content way earlier. It's great at the community college level and, professional education, but what is KC7 doing to help remedy that? Have you been working with some K through 12 schools?
Yeah, so we initially built KC7 for HBCUs. I went to Howard University, so that's the cause I cared about, and I knew that we needed resources in places where you don't have the money or the lab set up or all this, right? So I've been working with a professor 5 years ago when I got out of college. I built the very thing that I needed when I was trying to break in, when I was literally sitting in your seat, right? And then I went through the process and I looked back and I said, I needed exactly this, and so that's what we built. But then we said, could this be used for other people? And so we went to high schools. We went to the high school system in Kentucky, and we spent a full day with students, and they loved it, right? We found that middle school students and high school students could actually pick up very complex, like analysis, cybersecurity analysis questions, and formulate it if you present the data and the questions in the right way. And so, this is something that can help you out, but then if this is something that you want to take to your local high school or middle school and help give back to your community, because again, this is a community effort. This is something I do on, my free time and my weekend. This is something that you can also get involved with, and we would love to have you as part of that journey.
Yeah, high school is so important for us to start getting this messaging out about cybersecurity career pathways. So Tennisha, you at BlackGirlsHack have been working on some high school-oriented programs, right?
Absolutely. So we actually have a program. It's called We Got Next Cyber. It is for 9th through 12th graders. So if you have a 9th through 12th grader in Virginia, please talk to me. We have a program that's open right now. It is for 30 students within the Northern Virginia area. We are going to teach them the basics of cybersecurity, Security Plus certification. We're going to give them a voucher for that, train them on what they need to know in order to be able to pass that certification. We've partnered with cyber.org and the National Cyber League, so they will be able to play in the Capture the Flag competitions this, I guess this is the spring semester. And our goal is to Jennifer's point, to try to get people more involved in cybersecurity earlier within their career. Imagine if when you graduated from high school, you already had a Security Plus certification. In the DC area, you know that you can get a job with a government contractor, and all they really require is a 8570 certification, which is Security Plus, right? So imagine if you graduated from high school and you can immediately get a job, making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, right? This is going to be, I think, a game changer for a lot of families because they have the opportunity to, not have to, start off like I did at, Wendy's or McDonald's or something like that, right? They have the ability to actually join the workforce and, bring income into their household. So I think it's important that, we start as much as possible moving the learning of cybersecurity to the left so that we can get people involved much sooner within their lives.
Okay. Can I just jump in? And we have a small internship, and they're all like 5 high schoolers are entering PICO CTF, which launched today. And that's a great opportunity for anyone who's younger or maybe new to Capture the Flag or new to cybersecurity puzzles. It's on Carnegie Mellon's website now, but if you go to picoctf.org, it's a Capture the Flag contest. If you go to, they have an area where you can learn and just read the PICO primer. That is like a 10-chapter walkthrough on like supercharging your skills. And you can sign up and you can register, and then today is the launch, and they do it multiple times. So definitely it's great for anyone, whether you're new to this or a younger person.
And I think that PICO Capture the Flag is a great example because, it's open to everybody, it's free. And not only that, but if you are younger and you do really well in PICO Capture the Flag, Carnegie Mellon has, one of the best competitive Capture the Flag teams in the country. I'm an alumna, but they have one of the best Capture the Flag teams in the country. So they recruit from people who do well within the PICO Capture the Flag. So it's meant to be like a practice, like training ground most of the time. Sometimes they have events, but if you're interested in Capture the Flag and competitive like cyber gaming, it's a great way to get started and to be able to showcase like your skills and figure out which areas you're interested in.
did you want to say anything about CTF? So will you spell PICO?
Oh yeah, it's PICO. And yeah. So just check it out, and you can put in your favorite search engine, PICO, capture the flag, and you can, again, like they have the Pico gym which you can learn off of with no competitive anything, and just learn how to do it. They have the primer, which is under learn, and you can have 10 steps. You can learn Python, web exploitation, HTML hacking, and why cybersecurity is important. Everything's written on a very like plain speak reading level, which is hard to find. And I couldn't recommend it enough. And good luck to the Crypto Harlem Pico CTF team.
So what Simeon and his colleagues have developed with KC7 is essentially also a game. So a lot of this is just playing games to see what works for you. And so also I will say that if you play the KC7 today, and maybe you'll love it, and you'll go home and you'll be like, I did cybersecurity, I can do this. Maybe you won't love it. But that's okay, because that's only one way of being in cyber. So if you take it, you play it, and then you kind of feel like, oh, that wasn't for me, don't be discouraged, because all of the CTFs have something different to offer. However, I might be asking the wrong group because you're all fairly technical, but for people like me who are cyber adjacent, and a lot of the people who are in Slack who are very interested in all the references we've been making to GRC, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more later, but that means governance, risk, and compliance. So those are roles in cyber that don't generally require you to be very technical. So are there any kind of games and things like that for somebody like me? I want to play around, but I'm probably not going to capture the flag.
Yeah, actually, there's tons. There's one called World of Haiku, which teaches you real cybersecurity lessons, and it literally is a video game. So it's these cool like anime characters, and they're kind of running around and doing all this other stuff, and you're literally learning cybersecurity while playing a game. So I tell people, like there's everyone will tell you you must do this or you must do that. There is no linear path to this. So you might not like CTFs, that's fine. You don't ever need those skills. There's cybersecurity jobs that don't even ever go into an office. You're just physically trying to break into a space or something like that. So, but just find the way to progress that works for you. And I would say World of Haiku is a pretty new thing. It's pretty awesome. It's a video game. The CTFs that are out there are always really great. There's a million different things. I myself have developed a tabletop exercise game called Cat and Mouse that we're going to publish out through our Ford Foundation. That really helps people who are not technical to understand the value of tabletop exercises.
I was just going to say, if you don't know what a tabletop exercise is, it's basically like where you read a card and it tells you a situation, and then you're supposed to, within the context of being a cybersecurity professional, figure out what you should do in that situation, right? So it'll be like, hey, you've been breached. You see that someone's throwing a whole bunch of things at your web server. What do you do? Type of thing, right? So, even if some of the terms that I think we're using up here, like if they don't make sense, like I think over time you will grow to understand. It's like when you get thrown into a new job, they will, hit you with the acronym soup, right? And eventually those letters will, form and actually make sense to you. But I think that it's important that you, like I said, find a tribe, and, together I think that you can, put your heads together and be able to figure it out, right? So if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now, don't, because I think that over time with enough exposure, then it'll all start to make sense.
Yeah, and Black Hill Security has a board game called Backdoors and Breaches. You do kind of need to be technical to play because it's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. So you need to know how to imagine yourself doing these things, but it works pretty well.
So Tennisha, you said that when you were first starting out, you tried to do it on your own, and that was the worst thing you could have done. So I did want to mention, there's an organization called WESIS, which is Women in Cybersecurity. Nobody from WESIS is here because their annual conference is about to start in Denver the day after tomorrow.
And I'll be there.
But they are a great partner of SANS, and I did want to mention that they have a mentorship program. It is open now for applications. I will post information about that in Slack, and I also have a flyer that they sent me that I'll put on the Summit Access page so you can download it. And I'll make that available to everybody once I'm not up here anymore. So anybody on the panel, what are your thoughts about mentoring? If it's not, so obviously a mentorship program like that from WESIS. It's really clear cut about what your obligations are as the mentee and what the mentor's obligations are to you. But if you don't get accepted into the WESIS program or you don't have access to something like that, can I just say like, hey, Simeon, will you mentor me? Or how does that work?
So, so we have a mentoring program at BlackGirlsHack. It's open to everybody. So if you need a mentor, we will pair you with somebody. If we don't have somebody that's in your specific area, we will go out and get somebody to, be able to mentor you. We've been able to match all of the people so far. So when you're talking about a mentor, I tell people not just to get a mentor, but to get a lot of mentors. As many as you can manage the relationships. And the reason I say that is because mentoring is very much so a relationship. It's like the workplace equivalent of like, a boyfriend, girlfriend, like we go together, right? I'm invested in you and you're invested in me. And as a mentor, I want to know what's going on in my mentees' lives. I want to know what it is they're trying to do. I can do things like review your resume or help you prepare for a job interview. But I can also, do things like, tell you, what's the best way to negotiate your salary. You should never, accept the initial salary that they give you, especially if you're a woman. Stop doing that, right? You should definitely, negotiate. If somebody says like, hey, I'm going to give you 70,000, then you should immediately just counter with, 75 before you say anything else, right? You should negotiate, and I think a mentor will actually help you to, know what that value that you should negotiate should be. You should use the information that's on the web. Twitter, Cybersecurity Twitter basically has a whole lot of spreadsheets going around that tell you the exact salaries that people make in exact areas, right? So there's information out there. You just have to know the right people. And you should get a mentor that's in the position that you want to eventually end up being in, a mentor that's basically in the same field. You could just have a mentor that's been in the game for like 80 years, so that you can learn the rules of the game, right? As many relationships as you can maintain, I would suggest that you get that many mentors so that you can have different perspectives on the best way to move forward.
Yeah. Formal mentorships are great, and I think also informal mentorships are great. I think a couple of folks already mentioned InfoSec Twitter and Cybersecurity Twitter is such a great resource, or Mastodon, or where other folks are these days, because there's so many people out there, and they're constantly talking about the latest and greatest ideas, right? You don't have to, they're not doing it behind closed doors. There's literally just every single day, talking about the things that they care about and they're thinking about and they're passionate about. And one thing you can do is, go out there and just read and watch the conversations happen. And don't be afraid to actually participate in the conversation, right? If someone's talking about, I'm in threat intelligence, so I like to talk about threat actors. Someone's talking about threat actor X and then published a blog about it, go in the comments, read the article, and ask a question about it. And odds are, right, like they're going to answer you, or they're going to have a discussion with you. I think the more that you're engaged in the conversation on Twitter within those communities, people will start to take note. They're gonna be like, hey, who is this person who is in the comment section all the time saying something and having all these insightful ideas? So by the time you're applying to a position at their company, they're like, I know that name. That's the person who always has great ideas whenever I post anything. I'm more likely to want to work with that person, or I'm more likely to want to engage with that person.
That's funny that you say that, because Sadie Gauthier, who works for SANS now, used to come to every virtual SANS summit when we first started going virtual in 2020, and she always had the best comments and the best attitude, and she asked great questions, and we were all like, oh, we love Sadie. And then a job opened up at SANS, and now she works with us, and
That's awesome.
So that's how that happens. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's okay to also to mentor shop. Well, first of all, on the virtual side, there are a lot of jerks in InfoSec. Like, we all know this. So, like Naomi said, that part, like, there are a lot of haters, a lot of people who will be like, oh, noob, like, STFU, whatever. I don't know what that means. But there are a lot of good folks too. Don't let that get you down, right? If you're not, like, if English isn't your first language and you're typing to people who are native English speakers, or they're talking about InfoSec, but they're really just talking about the United States. Like, I'm a hacker I've been doing this work for decades. I'm one of the best hackers in the world. I work globally. Not everyone has the same experiences. Don't let anyone let you down. You do belong here. We will support you. I'm always, happy. So when it comes to looking for a mentor, it's okay to mentor shop. And what I mean is, look for receipts. Like, I just met George, who's going to be helping everyone with their resumes later today. You need someone who can help you with your resume at stage one. That's not a mentor who hasn't been talking to hiring managers or trying to get a job in forever is because they're way up there. You need someone who sees a lot of resumes, who knows a lot of hiring managers to get you through that. Once you get your resume that you know it's working because you'll start getting interviews, you might need a different mentor to help you do mock interviews. And I always recommend ask that mentor to, a real interview is someone you don't know and it's kind of awkward and they ask you weird questions. Have them connect you with someone in their network who can set up an interview for you where they're just looking at your resume and the job you want, and they can do that mock interview. And then negotiations when it comes to salaries. Now you have an offer. You need a different mentor who knows what the market rate is today or around now for where you are, what your passport is, what your opportunities are. Because a lot of the opportunities we speak about are not available to people who are international students or aren't available to people who don't live inside the US and things like that. So you need a mentor that maybe is a little bit closer to you.
Okay, so Tennisha and Matt both touched on the big issue, talking about salaries and salary negotiation. And Dan Corey, I see your question in Slack. How do we find out about salary information? That's a big one. I want to come back to that, but we're getting down to less than 12 minutes left. Did you have a few slides that you wanted to show, Simeon? Or no? Your slides were for later.
Yeah.
Okay, so Christy Rice is a teacher at Spotsylvania High School, and yay, teachers are our heroes, and we need more people like Christy who are teaching cybersecurity at the high school level. So she was driving up from Spotsylvania, which is not close, right?
It's a hike. I live out there, and I can tell you, like, over the river and through the woods, like, it's far.
So Christy got held up, and I'm going to do a very poor job of talking about what Christy was going to talk about, but I do want to show a couple of slides because, yeah, I'll take that, thank you. So SANS has a program called CyberStart. You had all those slides. Okay. So, okay, I will make this available to you. We will post all the slides afterwards. That is obviously a wealth of resources that Matt had to share with you.
He brought his receipts.
Yep.
I brought my receipts.
Got the receipts. So, okay. Did you want to talk to any of these?
Let's bring Christy's thing because she's not here.
Okay.
I really want to give her time.
Okay. So I'm not going to represent this well because I'm not the expert on CyberStart, but this is a resource that SANS has developed that Christy is able to use with high school students. And this is very much like what we've all been talking about, gaming, content that is totally beginner focused. As you can see, there's very appealing graphics. It looks like a computer game or an app that you would be paying money for. And students are able to do this, try their hand at different challenges, and then a certain number of students who show a particular aptitude will then be selected to go through more advanced levels. And we can get you lots more information about this, and I'm sorry that Christy isn't here to say this much better, but I did want to show you this and make you aware of CyberStart as a resource through SANS. And so this is James Line, who is one of those people that when you meet him, you're like, how is his brain made of the same stuff as my brain? Because he's so brilliant, it's ridiculous. So he has developed a ton of content for early learners in cybersecurity and is also the author and presenter of our SANS 275 course, which we can talk a little bit more about later, but that is our cybersecurity foundations. So it's sort of a survey course that introduces you to all different aspects of cybersecurity. And so if you get into that, you'll see much more of James. And Christy had some things which would have been much more interesting if she had presented them that I am not prepared to present on her behalf. But I think what you're seeing here is sort of how the interface works and what people will see when they're playing with it. And so we'll get you more information about that. So, okay. Did you have anything that I skipped over in your slides that you wanted to go back to cover?
Yeah, when you go to something like this, like you sacrifice your time. To me, like time's your biggest resource. You're never gonna get it back. You can't buy time. That QR code is just to another set of slides where I'm gonna put in as many things that other people have brought up or I might want to go into. So you don't have to take notes, you don't have to scribble everything down, you don't have to remember everything. That's what I put there. And the link should allow you to comment. So if you have any questions or there's slides that you want to see, I'll make them for you. Because I believe in you. Like Naomi was saying, our keynote speaker, like you do belong here. And there's a lot of gatekeeping. There's a lot of people like, oh no, this is for this and this for that. Everyone can do this. You don't need to be some special superstar hacker to do this. Like Stephen was saying, you don't need to be a rock star. You don't need 10 years of experience. Everyone can do this, and if you just have an interest, you just want to do it, then you belong here, and you belong to be someone who's getting paid to do this work.
So George, our very wise friend George Sanford, who's going to be up here later for the resume workshop, just informed me that California's recent pay transparency law requires potential employers to post salary ranges for jobs that will or may be filled or done remotely from California. That's certainly the exception rather than the rule.
And there's changes where, like in New York City, you're going to be seeing that as well. So I think the original question from the virtual folks were, how do I know how much I should be getting paid? And for example, that's why I talk about receipts and finding someone who knows what's going on. Post-COVID, everything's different. People work 3 days a week and they work virtual for 2, so no one's working in the office Monday and Friday. There's a different hybrid and remote job explosion that you'll see. So when you look at these posts in California, New York City, et cetera, places where you'll see the salary in the post, it gives you an idea of what you can look for these kind of jobs, for the title you're looking for. But there's a big range. Like you might see a security operations center job, which is something I recommend to folks because that is a 24/7 monitoring job. So there's 3 shifts a day. If the company has 20 people doing the job, that means there's 60 people who they can hire because they need to do it 3 times, right? There's different tiers. Tier 1 doesn't get paid what tier 2 gets paid, and tier 3 doesn't get paid what tier 4 gets paid, but it gives you an idea. And also, if you're overseas and you're joining us virtually, good evening, good night, wherever you are, just understand that there's also a difference based on geographic location. But it is always going to be very high for wherever you are. That's the thing. It's all relative, but these will be the highest paying jobs you'll see for wherever you are.
Yeah, so it's interesting in California and New York are the states that basically started the pay transparency, right? Because people who live in California, specifically the Bay Area, and people who live in New York are probably some of the most well-paid people, but just because the cost of living in those places is much higher, right? So just keep in mind that while you see the salary range, right, that's a range, and it also considers the fact that there's different markets. So, we call them basically equal plus 10 or minus 10 markets, right, depending on, what the cost of living is in those places, right? But it'll give you a ballpark. And if you live in those areas, then it's perfect because then, you know how much you should be getting paid in your area. But just keep in mind that, like, if you live in, like, Arkansas, or if you live in, like, Georgia or something, right? It may not be the same salary range for your area, but I would definitely look for those salaries because, with the pay transparency, companies that are, have people who hire them, all over the United States at least, that's letting people know, how much they get paid for that particular job. I've had people who literally have said, hey, I saw that you just posted a job like mine and this is a salary and I'm not in that range. So, what's going on, right? So, use the information, put yourself in the best bargaining position. You should probably be around, the mid-range of whatever the thing is, unless you're like very, very, very new. Like if you have experience coming from another industry or another sector, right? Don't discount that experience. It counts, right? You've got work experience. Make sure that you're bringing that into your cybersecurity career. And also, I think to Jennifer's point earlier, we need graphic designers, we need artists, we need accountants, we need all of the things within cybersecurity umbrella, right? So you don't have to be, hands on keyboards. There are so many things within the umbrella of cybersecurity, and I think that everyone is needed. So.
Awesome. I just want to add, I will post my slides in the Slack, so you have this stuff, but if you want to go from, like, I feel like my resume is really thin and all the jobs that are open are 3 to 5 years experience that I don't have, you can volunteer. So there are websites like Catch a Fire and Taproot where you can just, I'm a professional, I want to volunteer, and you can just search for cyber jobs. And it'll be like, look, this is an organization or a company or a smaller, middle to large size company that needs someone to help out with their cyber, and they're not always unpaid. Volunteer doesn't mean free. So sometimes there's volunteer that's free, and sometimes there's volunteer that's unpaid. There are also places where you can post, like, I want to help, and there are places like AARP for people who are, you don't have to be retired, you don't have to be older to use the AARP. I want to volunteer and help someone in my community with these things. Also, if you're a person of faith, you can go to your mosque or your church or wherever that is, and you can say, hey, I want to volunteer. Or if your identity, whatever your intersections are on. So you could say, like, this is a community that I care about. Maybe I could use my skills and my interest in cyber to help this community. Just find an organization that'll be happy to have you. That counts, and that can help you in your resume. So I post a bunch of that stuff in my slides of like these different sites you can look for volunteer opportunities on. And remember that there's a lot of different ways to think about like what your experience is. There's also gig jobs, so you can look at places like Upwork and even a Fiverr, where they both have cybersecurity sections. And there are people who are like, oh, my WordPress site got hacked. Does anyone can help me? You can teach them about multi-factor auth and things like that, and that counts too. So there's also training opportunities. So sometimes it's just about shifting your paradigm on like, well, I need 3 to 5 years of experience. I tell people, let's start by digging through what you already do and add up those, oh, you did 6 months here. Oh, you did a year this way. Let's volunteer. Like let's think of other volunteer opportunities that you might be able to do to get to that 3 to 5 years so your resume actually stands up while you're networking to find the less than 3-year stuff, which is under the water. Those are those opportunities that are kind of like, oh, we remember you, we heard about you, or you have a friend or a virtual friend who works here.
Okay, so you've heard us all say, from Naomi and all of us saying, there's many different ways to be in cyber, right? You don't have to be a hacker. You don't have to know how to write code. So this question was for Tennisha, but we've only got 2 minutes left, so I'm gonna read it out, and then you can all just kind of tell me your best advice. I think we're all looking for the magic bullet to figure out like which is the cybersecurity pathway for me and how do I figure that out. So Angelica was asking for you, Tennisha, in the sign up to be a mentee on BlackGirlsHack, it asks you to select a cyber subcategory, red team, incident response, cybersec law. What if we don't know what we want to do yet and we're open to different options? So just your closing thought from each of you is, how do I figure out what part of this is for me? And we'll start with Tennisha.
You can just say general cybersecurity. It doesn't have to be a specific thing. I tell people to do capture the flag to try to figure out what specific area you might be interested in. But if you don't know, just say that. You don't have to pick one thing. It's not like you're actually getting married, right? So you can kind of date around and figure out which area of cybersecurity interests you. So don't feel like obligated to choose a side. Red team is the right side, if you're wondering. But
yeah, I'm on the blue team side. But I would say, yeah, try a little bit of everything. Just because you pick something doesn't mean you have to stay with that for the rest of your career. I know people who start on one side and then 2, 3 years or 5 years down the line, they'll switch and go do something else entirely. So I would say try a little bit, figure out what excites you the most, and I think you'll figure out that, hey, I really enjoy doing this, and then kind of stick with that in the short run. And then later on, maybe you decide to do something else.
The best team is purple team, and thank you. And I say, when you're trying to figure out what to do, just go out into the virtual conferences. You'll find something that resonates with you. If you live near a major city, you can go to like a big city event, or you can go to like a B-sides, which are normally local events, right? You also can volunteer at those events. So if you see there's a big conference or a big talk and it just happens to be near you, try to volunteer there. You can put that on your resume, and also you can get exposed to different types of people in the cyberspace, because I always say cybersecurity is like medicine. So like, it's like, oh, I'm sick of all this dental work. I can't believe that's medicine. It's like, that's a dentist. Maybe you want to be the chiropractor. Maybe you want to be the foot doctor. So, like there's a lot of different stuff under the cybersecurity umbrella, and there's new areas being developed every year.
All right, awesome. Last thing, for anybody who doesn't know, will you explain what red team, blue team, and purple team mean?
I will say that the red team is the virtual or simulation of an attacker, where you're doing exploits, you're trying to get in. At the end of the day, you just have to get lucky. So you throw like 100 different rocks and hope one of them hits the king. So if you're the blue team, you've got to protect the entire castle. You got to protect it from the archers. You got to protect it from the people running through. You got to protect it from the thieves in the village, right? So
defense.
It's like you cannot mess up. You have to be 99%. One lucky rock gets in, the king gets knocked out. That's on the blue team. So and purple team is like, why are we thinking only one way? I want to know both sides so I could be the king. I'm biased.
Thank you so much. Hopefully April is here to come up for the next talk. Cannot see anything because the lights are so bright. But thank you so much. This was great. And they will all be available to answer questions in Slack for the rest of the day and be hanging around to help George out with the resume workshop later on.